Driving through Qarawat Bani Hassan, it's difficult to miss that it's a town in mourning. At its entrance, plastered on its buildings, bus stops, and even road signs, everywhere you look, posters of Ahmed Asi with the words martyr. But before Ahmed became a martyr to people here, he was a carpenter, a husband, a father to 6 children, a brother, and a cherished son.
شفتيه خذ يطلع مش هذا حرام ينحط تحت التراب والله محبوب أحمد وين مكان محبوب عند أهله ومحبوب عند أصحابه وين مكان الكل بيحبه والكل بيعزه يوم شو ذنبه هذا يقعد بلا أبوه شو ذنب هذيك تقعد بلا أبوه.
This makeshift memorial marks the spot where Ahmed's body was found. He'd been shot in the chest. It was hours after Palestinians here say about 20 Israeli settlers descended on Qarawat Bani Hassan from a nearby hill. A local councilman who says he witnessed the attack walks me through what he saw.
أول دقيقة وصل المستوطنين هاي المنازل الجيش وصل معاهم وأطلق النار وأفرغ لهم المنطقة هاي ليمارسوا كامل اعتداءاتهم وأي حدا كان يحاول يقرب كان الجيش برضه يطلقوا فيه.
The owner of this house told me settlers tried to set fire to it. He was coming back from a shopping trip with his children when he saw the smoke.
وأنا جاي عليه طبعا أنا لا شعوريا طبعا صمد السلاح علي شايف علي أنا بدون ما توقف بدون ما أنطي إشارة تحذير إني أوقف عادي أنا شاغلني الدار بلش يقول لي ارجع بقول لك ارجع بقول له الدار بقول لك ارجع بقول لك ارجع روح من هون فرجعت وقفت هناك لورا شوية على بعد تقريبا 200 متر واطلع على الدار شفت نحن.
Settler violence is not new in the occupied West Bank, but the UN says it has surged dramatically since the Hamas terror attacks on October 7th. In nearly half of all recorded incidents, as with the attack on Qarawat Bani Hassan, Israeli forces were reportedly seen as supporting the attackers. This town is completely surrounded by Israeli settlements, which are considered illegal under international law. Palestinians here tell me they can barely sleep at night, not knowing where the next attack could come from. Just look at the devastation that these attacks usually bring. In response to our inquiry about the attack on Qarawat Bani Hassan, the Israeli military said there was a confrontation between residents and settlers. And to break it up, troops used live fire and other means. The incident is now under police investigation. The people of Qarawat Bani Hassan tell me none of this makes them feel safe. That when there's an attack, they're left to fend for themselves. The day Ahmed Asi was killed, he had responded to a call that came from the speakers of the local mosque to help protect the village from the settlers. Despite the loss, Ahmed's family tells me they're proud of what he did that day.
يعني لولا هبات الناس والجماهيرية وراح فداها الشهيد أحمد عاصي لكان هناك مجازر داخل البيوت. فنحمد الله إنه يعني الحمد لله رب العالمين أخونا استشهد بس فدى بيوت ناس فدى ناس آمنين فدى نساء فدى أطفال في هذيك المنطقة.
His 2 youngest children, however, are too young to understand that sacrifice, that their beloved father is now gone for good.
لما يدق على الباب حدا تاتا اج بابا جاب لي منمنم بابا جاب لي محا تفتح الباب شاي البيت لك يجربوها هذا هي بتقولي والله يا تاتا مشتي اشوفها بابا والله يا ستي خذيني عبا والله مشتي اشوفه بابا انا يا ستي وديني على الجنة مشان اشوف بابا.
And our special correspondent, Aya Ibrahim, who filed that report, joins us now in the studio. Aya, tell us more about the growing tensions in the occupied West Bank and what that means for Palestinians living there.
It's a very volatile security situation. On the one hand, we have an increase in settler violence, as we've seen in this report. And 2023 was already set to be one of the most violent in terms of settler violence since the UN started keeping records over a decade ago. And we've seen, because of the war and because since October 7th, an increasing number of settlers are now in reserve duty. So we've also seen attacks where settlers that Palestinians know by face and by name, because they live very close to them, are attacking them in military fatigue. And the Israeli army has taken some disciplinary measures against some of these settlers that have attacked in non-IDF sanctioned raids, if you will. We've seen that this increased violence is leading to displacement. Over 1,000 Palestinians say that they have been forced out of their communities. These are usually smaller communities, different from the ones that we've seen in this report, who just leave because the attacks have gotten so bad. And then on the other hand, there are also what the Israeli military and the Israeli government says are counter-terrorism operations happening mostly in the northern part of the West Bank. Hamas is not in control in the West Bank, not like in Gaza, but at the same time, there are, of course, militant cells in the West Bank, and there are deadly raids happening on an almost daily basis to root them out, as the Israeli government says.
Tell us more about how the Israeli officials are dealing with incidents like the one highlighted in your report and others similar.
I think the response from the politicians, the people in power in Israel, can be described as dismissive. The Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that these actions are happening by a handful of extremist settlers, that they are tarnishing the reputation of Israel, but that it's a minority. So it's a somewhat dismissive tone. And he's also told, reportedly, to leaders of the settler community that he's told Joe Biden that he has nothing to worry about. I'm paraphrasing. There are, of course, also ministers in this government that are well-known members of the settler movement. I'm talking about the Interior Minister and the Finance Minister. With this particular case, it's still under investigation, but Palestinians that I've spoken to say they, from their perspective, they live under a framework of military occupation, so they don't really believe that any process or any investigation will bring them justice.
What about that justice? I mean, are there prospects for justice in this case that you were dealing with with the young man Ahmed Asi, who was killed, and can his family expect any justice?
It is under police investigation. The investigation is ongoing. That's the official response that we got. Rights groups, however, always point out that with cases like this, that it actually gets to a prosecution and punishment of settlers, that's a minority. And so Palestinians feel like they will get no justice. And I think the bigger, or what struck me making this report is, the children who've lost their father in this way and what kind of future they would have. It's a very alarming phenomenon for sure.
Aya, thank you very much. Our special correspondent, Aya Ibrahim.